This is the true definition of fire versus fire, flames versus flames, mauler versus mauler, grappler versus grappler. You have Jared Gordon, ranked number 35 in the lightweight division versus number 23 ranked Grant Dawson. Now, let's not forget here, AJ. Grant Dawson is coming off of a weird majority draw fight against Ricky Glenn where he was dominating the fight, gassed out in round 3, and Ricky Glenn did literally like just enough to force a draw. So this was a fight that Grant Dawson was pretty much winning until, you know what I mean, he just kind of didn't give it that. If he would have gave it that last, if he had a little something more in round 3, he would have got it done. Either way, Jared Gordon is a dude who gets counted out time and time again. He's an underdog constantly in his fights, and he wins his fights constantly. His last loss, believe it or not, was to the current lightweight champion, Charles Oliveira, and that was a first-round knockout. Aside from that, he has, since that loss, he has a win against Chris Fishgold, decision win, Danny Chavez, decision win, and Joe Selecki, split decision win. Now, I think his last win against Joe Selecki should tell you a lot about how this Dawson fight is going to play out. Do you know who Joe Selecki is, AJ, outside of just MMA fighter?
Outside of MMA fighting?
Yeah.
No, man. I only know him for his MMA.
So this dude is one of the sickest, nastiest Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioners out there right now, man. This dude, his game is dirty, man. So I watched him at the UFC Invitational, the grappling event at the Apex, right? And this dude, like him and let's just say he's the real deal. He is elite level jiu-jitsu. And when he was fighting Jared Gordon, he took Gordon down. He had the backpack on him. He was smothering him. But Jared Gordon always knows just what to do to be able to reverse the position, get you against the cage, ground and pound you, get on top of you, take your back, seatbelt, just control, brother. It's all about control. So in his fight against Grant Dawson, I think Dawson, who is literally exactly what I just said, the exact same thing, right? He is take you down, control, smother, ground and pound. I think that this is going to be interesting to see who is going to be able to do the little things to be able to reverse the positions, get on top, hold your opponent there. If you had to say someone has an edge in this fight in the grappling department, would you say it's Dawson or would you say it's Gordon?
Man, that's and we're talking millimeters right here of an edge, Derek, because they're so both very, very good at what they do. I'd almost have to give it to Gordon, but at the same point, man, it's super close. I don't know. I wouldn't even really be able to tell because they're so good. I don't know who you give it to. Like I said, I'm giving it to Jared Gordon, but that's very minimal. Who are you giving it to?
I'm giving it to Jared Gordon in terms of the experience, brother. Like, I just think that he's so experienced. He's been doing this thing for so long. And he has a comparable record to Grant Dawson, right? 18-4 is Gordon, 17-1-1 is Dawson, right? So it's kind of comparable. They're right there, kind of the same amount of fights. But I think Jared Gordon has been fighting against high caliber opposition for so long that this dude has been able to just kind of be that underdog who just wins time and time again. Now, Grant Dawson is the youth. He's the young. He's got the vigor, right? He's the young, youthful dude coming in who is just that nasty smash style wrestler who just gets you on your back and pummels you. But then again, same thing with the Joe Anderson Brito. When that third round comes, brother, what are we looking like? All that grappling is going to make you tired. This is actually something, AJ, believe it or not, we were talking about this in jiu-jitsu. I think this was yesterday at training, right? And we were talking about these hard rounds we were doing, and we're saying at a certain point when you're doing jiu-jitsu or when you're fighting or when you're doing combat sports or whatever sport, it's not a matter of who's better. It's a matter of who wants it more. And that's going to be my question for this round 3, if it does make it there in this matchup. Who's going to want it more? If you had to take a guess on that right now, who do you think it would be?
Man, I'm hoping it's going to be Dawson because that's the whole reason I picked him right there, brother, because I agree with you. I think it's going to be a battle of attrition on this one, man. Whoever is in those late rounds and says, you know what, I'm still hungry. I may be at the buffet right now, but I'm still hungry. I'm still eating. I'm hoping it's going to be Dawson. But like I said, man, this is the epitome of what I was talking about earlier with the grinder matchup we have.
Yeah.
This fight right here is grinder against grinder. This is going to be very interesting in the technical game to see how it gets done, but also in the mental game in those late rounds, how it does, because we've seen Dawson fade. So It scares me a little bit, but I think with what happened in his last fight, he's going to take that and kind of turn that into a good positive outlook and keep the gas tank for this next fight coming up. At least that's what I'm hoping. Who do you think?
Well, I can't say that Jared Gordon doesn't fade because he faded in his last fight against Selecki, but they were both grappling for 2 heavy rounds before rounds 3. So this is what Dawson does. So let's say both of them fade. That's when it comes down to who wants it more. I'm not sure, brother. This is one of those things where you said, I don't know. That's how I feel about this entire matchup. However, I'm going to lean towards Jared Gordon because of the experience and because what we saw in that round 3 of Grant Dawson. Call it what you want, AJ, but a lot of people would call it quit. And I'm not calling it quit, but a lot of people would call it quit. And I'm just going to say Jared Gordon is a dude who I don't think there is a quit in that man. You know what I'm saying? This is a dude who's overcome a lot. He'll often talk about his reformed lifestyle. You know, he was a former, you know, drug addict or something like that. And no need to even really bring that up. But this is something where if you can get past those demons, I mean, imagine what you could do in the cage. So I did want to talk about this last aspect before we talk about props real fast. Obviously, Gordon is a plus 145 underdog, minus 170 favorite for Dawson. But let's say this is grappler versus grappler, where it turns into a kickboxing match. I actually think Grant Dawson has a clear, like, striking advantage over Jared Gordon. Would you agree?
I agree entirely. I think he's just a lot slicker, a lot faster on the hands and feet.
Yeah.
Now, will that happen? I don't know, man. I don't know if it's usually we see that fire versus fire null each other out, and then we get the kickboxing match.
Yeah.
But with these two, I don't know. I think we're gonna see a washing machine, man.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to be able to help themselves. I think it might be instinctual. They're just like, I have to shoot for a double. Like, I have to, right? So let's talk props, AJ. When it comes down to a points prop, for Jared Gordon, we're looking at plus 225. For Grant Dawson, we're looking at plus 140. So the odds makers clearly think that Grant Dawson has a better shot of winning this via decision. Now, because Jared Gordon has 10 decisions and Grant Dawson only has 2 decisions, a finish would probably be more likely for Grant Dawson, given his style. So a TKO finish by Grant Dawson right now is looking at plus 450. If we're looking at the same for Jared Gordon, it's plus 700. I mean, you like that plus 450 TKO for Grant Dawson, or what do you think?
I like it just because the plus 450 sounds a little bit better, but I think by decision is going to be the more likely route right here. You know, just with the style of matchup they have, I don't really see Jared Gordon going to sleep. So I as much as I like that plus 450, I still like the decision one a little bit more.
I got you. So over and under is 2.5 rounds, brother. You taking the over for Grant Dawson?
I'm taking the over for Grant Dawson. Yep. Dawson by points.
And I'm taking Gordon by points on this one. Once again, this is just youth versus experience. This is vigor versus veteranship. I just think Jared Gordon is going to do just enough to get it done. However, I can totally see your point right there, AJ. I mean, Grant Dawson is a nasty, nasty competitor. He only has, one loss in his entire career? Does he even have a loss? Yeah, he has one loss. But in the UFC, he's undefeated, 5-0 with 1 draw. So should be a fun fight, but if anything, there's probably be a grinder fight more than anything else, man. So